everybody, we could go ahead and get started. Try to start on only 2 minutes late. Welcome to the second North Mason Chamber Government Affairs Committee Luncheon Meet. These lunchtime public forums are an effort on the part of your chamber to provide our community with opportunities to learn and make informed decisions on issues that are important to folks living and working in North Mason. Today's panel will be sharing with us about the proposed North Mason Emergency Campus. Before we welcome the panel, however, I would like to thank the North Mason Regional Fire Authority for providing lunch. Yeah! Woo-hoo! Working on the basis, feed them and they will come. Okay. I would also like to thank the Port of Allen for both the coffee and the room, and certainly not least, last but not least, I would like to thank Mason Web TV for live streaming this event. Through their efforts, we're able to share this info far beyond this room. In this way, we can reach folks who are not able to attend. You know, they have like daytime jobs. Finally, I would like to take just a moment to talk about our Government Affairs Committee, the sponsor of today's events. The mission of the Government Affairs Committee is to identify and monitor potential legislation, issues, and governmental actions that could affect the North Mason community. With an emphasis on healthy businesses, the committee will make recommendations to the Chamber of Commerce Board of Trustees regarding taking a position on a specific issue. In addition, and this is what we're doing here, they will form partnerships to educate the community at large regarding important issues with local impact. We are at this time a small committee representing a limited range of businesses and interests. We are assertively seeking more members from a variety of enterprises and political perspectives. If you might want to be part of our committee in order to bring your passions, talents, and energy, please reach out to one of us and take up and return a membership information form. We have them back on that back page thing. What we can do for our neighbors will depend on the interest and energy of our membership. If you're not able to serve on the committee but have an issue that you feel we should look into, please fill out and return the issue summary form. It's on the back too. It looks like this. Okay. We cannot promise that we'll be able to help, but we will definitely carefully consider each submission and when appropriate forward your concern on to those that might be able to help. If I could ask the current committee members to stand, and thank you for all you do, so you would know who to talk to if you were interested in finding out more. Please stand up. On that note, I will be quiet and turn things over to the folks you came to see. Chief Chef. I'll just change it to Chef. That's what happens when you drop an I. No, the chef is around here somewhere. Okay, yeah. To Chief Bobakken and his panel to tell us about their plans for an emergency management campus. We will leave time for questions at the end. Oh, and just one last thing. If you haven't already signed in, I'm sending this around if you can sign in on this. That would be great.
Thank you. Well, my name is Bobakken. I am the fire chief of the North Mason Regional Fire Authority. The real chefs are Brad and Christy back there.
Yeah, I didn't know their name.
And Brooke here is one of our fire technicians who works with me. And just maybe a little joking here. So how the hot dogs came to fruition is that being a Muncheon Meet was a good idea, but Commissioner Netherland kind of had a sidebar conversation with Patty and said, hey, wouldn't it be a great idea to have hot dogs? Which, next thing you know, she emails me, and what am I going to say? No? But what I am very proud to announce is that our next 5th Tuesday meeting, we'll actually be having filet mignon, and we'll be having lobster tail meeting at the school district. So I appreciate that. Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. Just kidding. We've done a lot of hot dogs this summer with Randy. It's actually been a lot of fun getting out in the community and doing it, so it's a lot of fun. So the proposal today that we're talking about is an emergency management campus for North Mason. And one of the things that I don't have built into this slide is who does this pertain to? And the boundaries of our fire district, which we'll get into a little bit here in the boundaries, but because we do cover a large area. But we serve everything from the North Mason High School north. So everything to the Kitsap County line, and we shoot out the entire Shibuya Peninsula. So that's within our fire authority as well. And then we shoot down South Shore to about a mile past, actually about 3/4 of a mile past Kewanna State Park, and we cover everything in Trails End. So when we're talking about who's going to be voting on this, who's going to be weighing in on this on the November 5th election, it's the folks that are within the boundaries of the fire authority. That's not to say that there won't be other benefits. So when we're talking about the sheriff's office, talk about emergency management, and we do a lot of mutual aid with Grapeview, with Allen, with other communities that some people I definitely consider North Mason, but for taxing purposes and how we're going to ask on November 5th, it'll be within the boundaries of the fire authority. So if I go down memory lane, and some of you have been in the community for quite some time and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, if we shoot back to 1971, that's when our current fire station was built. This is our fire station that's on the old Belfair Highway. It's a peach-colored building. You can see it kind of in its formation stages up here in this picture here. But when this fire station was built in 1971, so we're talking about almost 50 years ago, the really main purpose, and I think I heard somebody, in fact, I heard Brad talking about this earlier today, what really kind of built this building? I mean, yeah, we needed a fire station, but it was bingo. And it was bingo, and it was a community hall. That was the sales pitch. And oh, by the way, we're going to have some fire trucks in there that go out the door, and we'll have some space for our firefighters. But it's going to be a bingo hall. And bingo was a great setup for the fire department. I don't mean to knock it. It brought in a lot of money, paid for a lot of trucks, paid for a lot of equipment, and it really served its purpose. But when you think about that fire hall being built, it was 3 main rooms. If you've ever been in the building, it was a bingo hall, community room out back. There was the kitchen. When you came in the front, there was a big open area which kind of served as a pool room. Brad was talking about this earlier, but there was a pool room for volunteer firefighters to kind of socialize in between calls. And then there was the truck bit. And at that time, when it was built, the fire authority, and it wasn't even a fire authority, it was Mason County Fire District 2, but it was a lot smaller than it is today. We were running about 200 calls per year, and the fire district was about 36 square miles in size. So that's really kind of downtown Belfair, and maybe some offshoots down into Beards Cove, Lynch Cove, and down into, you can kind of see the number 2. You can see that it just kind of down North Shore, down South Shore. No, that's not the best picture in the world, but that was what this building was built for, a much smaller jurisdiction than what we have today. At the time that it was built, it was an all-volunteer organization, and I think that when the folks built it, they figured that it was going to be an all-volunteer organization for quite some time. And really, the facilities that was built for, again, social room, bingo, having a community hall out back. There was no overnight responders. There was nobody that was responding overnight. And actually, when the station was built, even the fire chief was a volunteer fire chief at that particular time in 1971. And then also, too, back in 1971, is that the fire department was mainly a fire and rescue response organization. It did a little bit of medical, and I think I heard a story earlier today about somebody needing a transport to the hospital, and it was a hearse that actually came out and took you off to the hospital. But the ambulances weren't coming out of the fire station. And if you look at the building, it's 7,600 square feet in size. And so that's, if you think about it from a house perspective, that sounds pretty big, but from a fire station perspective, that is a very tiny building. And what the fire commissioners and the fire folks have done over the period of years is that they have tried to eke out every square inch of that building. We've got now 5 bedrooms that are in there. We've got work areas that are in there. We've got offices for staff that have, as we've grown over the last 50 years, a lot of transformation in that building to get every ounce of useful life out of that particular building. Ross and Commissioner Nunn can speak a little bit better to this, but the Sheriff's Office, whereas the North Mason Fire Authority, we've got 13 fire districts in Mason County. We at the Fire Authority really kind of concentrate our efforts on fire protection and EMS protection in the North End. But when you look at the when you look at the Sheriff's Office and you look at DEM, their jurisdiction is the entire county, with the exception of, for the Sheriff's Office, not the city of Shelton. They've got their own police department down there. But what I do find interesting about the Sheriff's Office in particular, when you look at North Mason, we're anywhere between 1/4 and 1/3 of the land mass size of Mason County. So we're not a big makeup as far as land size. But half of the call volume that the Sheriff's Office responds to is within our jurisdiction in North Mason. So we are generating a lot of activity, a lot of calls, a lot of activity for the Sheriff's Office. And for the Sheriff's Office, they've got their main location in Shelton, which is right downtown, not too far from the county courthouse. And then they also have a smaller precinct that's kind of moved around over the years from spot to spot, and they're currently located next to Ben Fine Brewery there at the Belfair Landing, in a smaller building down there just off of Highway 3. And so they do have a presence up here. It's not like they're absent altogether, but the DEM, on the other hand, they've got their one location at Public Works. And so if I ever need to see Ross, I'm generally heading down to Public Works and seeing him down there with that building. but there's no North Mason location. And we'll talk about some of the troubles that can cause and some of the issues that can cause, which we've experienced in the past. So we talk about North Mason and public safety working relationships. DEM, I work a lot with Ross and his crew, but I work even more with the Sheriff's Office and their crews there. And I would sit there and say that almost every single day there was some type of activity where we're working hand in hand with one another. This is a spectrum of calls that we work together with these agencies with. I could probably fill 3 more slides of scenarios and situations that we respond to. But when we go to a house fire, Sheriff's Office is right there with us. When we're going to natural disasters, it's an all call. Away we go. When we've got threats of harm, somebody's got to protect our firefighters before we go in the front door. That's the Sheriff's Office. When we have medical SWAT teams, and so we have paramedics that volunteer with the Sheriff's Office. So when there's a SWAT call out, there's a medic crew that's in standby in case anything does go sideways and we need some medical crews. Hazardous material incidents. We have anything happen on the Highway 3, we have a hazardous material spill, it's an all call. I'm on the phone with him, he's on the phone with Casey, Casey's on the phone with me. We're trying to figure this out together. We do this every single day. And it's not just large scale incidents. There are medical incidents, which some people would call, I want to say routine because it's still an emergency event. But again, we need the Sheriff's Office there because we've got bystanders that aren't dealing with the situation well and we need protection. So we've got each other's backs. We're working very, very closely out there. And that continues whether this campus is a go or not. And so we talk about the North Mason community growth. I can go into a lot of statistics, and I will go into a few statistics, but I think that these 3 pictures can sum up the community growth in North Mason pretty darn well. The picture on the left, traffic. It's just nonstop. There are plans in place. There's work that's happening, and one of the things, I said this at the Chamber of Commerce luncheon, because I use this same slide, but does anybody know what this is? I was trying to get a picture of the traffic coming into town. Can you see the mistake that I made here? No.
Senior slowdown?
That is senior slowdown. I actually have the traffic going the wrong direction. But nonetheless, you know, it's a sign of the community growth. And actually, one of the things that happened this year was senior slowdown actually went away for the first time this year, working with the Sheriff's Office and the State Patrol. You know, again, a sign of a growing community. On the right-hand side is when the school district went up. I mean, beautiful campus facility up there for the North Mason School District. And I was talking with Dana. I don't want to put words in her mouth. I'm going to try to relay what she told me. But, you know, they anticipated that campus was going to take care of the population, expected population growth for at least 10 years. And from what I'm hearing already is that building's already at capacity and already plans are in place of what is the next phase of planning. That's the amount of growth that's coming in North Mason. And then the third picture that I have down here, which was amazing to watch get built, is the sewer system. And I know there's a lot of people that have had their hands on that particular project. But when you look at the sewer system coming in, the growth that it means, the plans that are coming across, the size and sheer capacity, it's amazing what is potentially coming down here at North Mason. And I don't say potentially, it's coming. It's just a matter of time. But we're experiencing the phenomenon of growth. So I talked about what the fire district was like back in 1971, 50 years ago when our fire station was built. Again, totally different environment today. Today we're now 136 square miles in size, not 36, but 136, and we are now a combination of 3 different fire districts. Tahuya Fire District, Fire District 15, which was the Collins Lake area. We brought in all of the Tahuya Forest, and then of course Fire District 2. And so the building that was built to support one kind of town core, downtown Belfair, is now supporting 136 square miles. Because when a call goes out anywhere in North Mason, people are coming from Belfair, whether it be Tahuya, whether it be out to Collins Lake, South Shore, they're all going to be coming out of our headquarters fire station. We've jumped from 200 calls in 1971 to 2,600 calls today. And at any given time, we have as many as 15 people that are operating out of that building. And also, too, again, talking about 1971, we had the volunteer responders that weren't spending the night. And now we can have as many as 10 overnight volunteers and career staff that are using that facility 24 hours a day and around the clock. We're all hazard response activities. So back in 1991, we took on paramedic responsibilities. We took on EMS responsibilities. And to be honest with you, that's about 90% of what we do. I know fire authority is still in our name, but to be adequate, or to be honest, we're really an EMS agency that happens to provide fire as well. We need to be really good at all, but EMS is really the wave of the future for us and is really the majority of what we do. Our call volume is growing at a rate of 10% per year, and we are going to increase by 50% over the next decade. You look at the number of calls that we'll run in less than a decade, we'll be surpassing 4,000 calls. That's a lot of calls for a fire agency. And the other thing that, and I'll touch on a little bit today, but I'm super excited about some of the specialized programs that are coming down the pike, and it's more on the EMS realm. And maybe I'll touch on it here just a little bit. But one of the things that I see fire authorities and fire districts getting into, we've been in emergency medicine for years and years and years. That's our backbone, that's what we're really good at. We're going to get into medicine. We're going to get into primary care. I don't want to say primary care, we're going to get into non-emergency medicine. Because right now, I know the cameras are rolling in the hospitals, might not want to see this, but you know what, you get sick at home and you're coming into the clinic, which does a great job, but that's an inconvenience. And it's not a cheap proposition as well. And I think that what we're seeing in other communities, it wouldn't be unique to North Mesa, but we're watching fire districts get into where they've got ambulances, they've got fire stations throughout a particular community, but they're getting into non-emergent healthcare calls with community paramedicine programs. And I believe in a community like ours, we're well positioned to have that type of service. Kind of getting back to the point where doctors made house calls. Who remembers that? I don't, but some people might. Some people might. But Patty remembers. But yeah, it's not a new model, but the doctor actually used to come to you instead of you going to the doctor when you're sick. Maybe there's a way to bring something like that back, and I know that there is because those models are working very, very well. Talking about community growth with the Sheriff's Office, back in 2013, so 6 years ago, they were running 7,700 calls. That is just North Mesa. That is not countywide. If you look at what they've done in 2018, look at the growth there. We're now to 11,000 calls just in the jurisdiction within North Mesa Regional Fire Authority. So a 50% increase is what they're anticipating. And at this particular rate, within a decade, they're going to be surpassing 20,000 calls. That is a lot of activity. That's 30 calls per day. 30 calls per day in North Mesa. Holy cow. And of course, just like we're taking on new specialized programs, we're growing as a community, the Sheriff's Office is needing to do the exact same thing with technology and different needs that they have as well. So what is, for this, and I'll get into what the scope of the project here here in just a second, but what is really, for the fire authority, what is driving this for us? What the biggest thing that's driving it for us is the need for space. We are completely out of space. The 7,600 square feet that I talked about, it doesn't work anymore. Right now, in our day room, right off the kitchen, we've got a kitchen table that's like this. This serves as a desk for 3 people right now. That's their office space. We're completely out of room. We've got folks that don't have bedrooms. We've got, I can go on and on and on, but the space is the biggest driver for this particular project. And modernization. We're in a building that's 50 years old, and getting our building up to speed. I don't want to say up to code, because it's up to code. We've got to be good fire folks, and we've kept that up over the years. But we need to modernize the building. The other thing that we wanted, we talked about, we've got, some of you might know about the quick response team and the opioid response teams that we've got that we're trying to work on here in Mason County. A lot of people have been working on, talking about community paramedicine programs. Those are all great. They just don't have the space. There's no space right now, and so it kind of kicks back to number one. And then, of course, the community growth anticipation. We know that this community is going to grow. We're watching some of the projects that are coming down the pike and some of the discussions that are happening, talking about the bypass. It's just a matter of time. We're watching it happening in front of our face. But I don't want to be on the back side of that curve. I want to be on the front side, hence the planning and the preparation for what's coming down the pike. Again, if the Sheriff's Office was here, they were supposed to be here today. Maybe they were just running a little bit late. They were a busy group, so I've got to get in that. But one of the things that we were really good at is planning. And so this wasn't a project that just 6 months ago we thought, well, we need a new station. This is something that's been on the docket for the better part of about 15 years. We've been looking, talking to property owners, looking at our growth trends. And so through a facilities planning process and also a strategic planning process, we knew this time was coming. And so we've been working really hard to put together a really good proposal, which is what is the emergency management campus. So what I knew is that we needed a new building. And my predecessor and predecessors, fire chiefs previous to me, was looking at this proposal as well. What they were looking at doing was building a new fire station right next door to the existing building. And if you're familiar with the building on the Old Belfour Highway, there's a 2.5 acre lot that's immediately right next door, which is kind of what we see here. And they've been planning, or at least having varied discussions on making some type of facility there, and for about the last 15 years. And so then the real question became, okay, we can move forward with that, but what do we do with our existing building? And who do you want your neighbors to be? And I'm sure for folks that are in the real estate realm, when you think about selling your house, you're like, yeah, we're going to want next door to me that's going to benefit what we're doing. And so I reached out to Commissioner Ludlow, and I reached out to the Sheriff's Office, and I reached out to Ross, and I said, well, wait a minute. One of the things that, that does have a play, I'm sensitive to it, is this, and I don't want to bring it back, but this north-south divide. There's a lot of services down in the city, down in Shelton. North Mason, just based on geographics, nobody's trying to be bad, but we're 45 minutes north. Sometimes those services aren't as available as they are down in the south part of the county. And so I saw, again, the building itself is a good building. This building, that building, the existing fire station, will be here a lot longer than I will. The bones of that building, that's a steel constructed building. It's not going anywhere. We're just out of room. We're we've outgrown it. But when you talk to the Sheriff's Office and you talk to DEM, their building down there on Highway 3 is about 2,500 square feet. This would triple their space. And I don't want to speak for them, but when you talk about their boat programs, and you talk about their SWAT programs, and you talk about where their vehicles are, they're stationed and staged all over Mason County. Right now, the closest boat, if I'm correct, is at Alderbrook. Their SWAT vehicle is on Highway 106. How about we take all that equipment and all that stuff and all the people and centralize it in one centralized location? Our apparatus bays that we use for fire trucks would be a perfect home for a lot of that equipment. Another thing that we have a lot of conversation with the Sheriff's Office is duplicating equipment. And so, listen, Sheriff's Office needs a boat, as do we. Sheriff's Office needs ATVs for when they're out in the forest, so do we. Well, instead of duplicating, how about we actually double down and share resources right next door to one another? And so I had the Sheriff's Office come in, take a look at the facility, and they said, this would be fantastic. And then all of a sudden, Commissioner Helen comes in and he says, absolutely. And I'll have him speak to a little bit more some of the discussions that we had, but it just made sense to take these entities that are working together day in and day out and bringing them together in one centralized location. There's two events when I was thinking about trying to get this project put together. There's two events. Again, this would have everyday benefits, but there was two events that really stuck out in my mind. And one predates Ross by a little bit, but one was in 2007, and it was our massive flood event. And most of us went through the hell that was the better part of 6 months trying to recover from that particular event. But at that particular time, DEM, and even today, DEM was located out in Shelton. And at that time, I was on the phone with our DEM in Shelton, and anytime it floods in anytime it floods in Mason County, where's the epicenter for flood? Always the Skokomish Valley, where the fish cross over the road. You all see it on the paper. And so I'm on the phone screaming, saying, listen, we are in trouble in North Mason, and we can't get out to the Tulia Peninsula. And so I had a discussion with DEM, and they said, no, the worst flooding's in Skokomish. That's where we're heading first and foremost. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And we worked through the process. We had a good conversation on the phone. I had a conversation with Casey. And Casey says, yeah, it sounds like you're in trouble. I said, yeah, we are. And he says, tell you what, we're going to bring up the whole operation, and we're going to bring it to North Mason. And so this building, even though it's not an emergency management campus, we have a proposal for that, but it was an emergency management campus in 2007. We had almost 300 people, National Guard, law enforcement, police, fire, multiple fire districts, working out of that building for the better part of 6 days during that entire event. And so it kind of, again, it became an emergency operating center. I'm thinking, gosh, wouldn't that be nice to have on a regular basis? Not just for massive 2000 storm events, but even smaller events. And the other event that kind of came to mind where we have got to be on our A game and working together was our active shooter incident that we had back in 2017.
Probably outside of maybe 2007, that's the worst day I've ever had at work. I mean, not the worst day. I mean, it worked out well, but I mean, from a pit of my stomach. I mean, I remember sitting in my office and I was sick to my stomach when my captain ran around the office and said, "There's somebody shooting at the high school." You're kidding. And all of a sudden, you've got 30 different agencies barreling down on the school. Yeah, we've done some planning and some work, but we haven't done a whole heck of a lot of working together to make sure that we have a pretty seamless operation up there when we get up to the high school. We work through it. We definitely have some lessons learned that we've taken away. We've started a monthly planning process. We are much better prepared than we ever were before. But boy, wouldn't it be great if we're doing that on a regular basis and working together hand in hand. An emergency management campus where we're just right next door to one another and we're getting through these events either in real time, planning or preparing, and doing it as a team. So what the project would entail, and this slide is just a little bit old because one of the things we've been able to do is we've actually got the 2.5 acres here. We have a purchase option. We've not bought this, so if for some reason this doesn't go through, we're not obligated to buying this. The other portion of the property, we've got more Old Belfair Highway frontage. We picked up an acre of land just to the immediate north, so we've got 3.5 total acres. And again, that Old Belfair Highway frontage for getting trucks in and out is fantastic. But the proposal would build a new fire station, about 17,000 square feet on this 3.5 acres here. And then this building down here, the existing fire station, would be repurposed to house both the EM, Sheriff's Office, and maybe some other entities that things come together. So community benefits, I won't belabor this slide because this is kind of what I've been preaching to this entire presentation, but this proposal would take all of our North Mason emergency response agencies and let's put them all together, working together in one centralized location. We're sharing resources, we're sharing planning, we're sharing preparation, all in one centralized location, which goes into the planning preparation when we do head out the door. We're all on the same sheet of music. I would like to say that we are right now. There's no animosity right there. But there's times where police set up and they do their thing over here. Fire sets up, it does its thing over here. Yeah, we're going to work together where we can. I think there's just a better way of doing it. And I think if the planning and the preparation is there, which this facility would allow, we're going to be a lot better heading out the door. And then at the same time, it repurposes an existing fire station. And so a lot of times in communities, you'll see a new fire station built, and then you'll see an old one become an antique store, maybe it becomes a garage sale, it just dilapidates. You know, that building still has I know it's 50 years old, it still has use, and it still has very good use. How do we repurpose that so it's still serving the community? And that's what this particular project would do. And again, the biggest driver of the project, it would provide us with space. Again, the 17,000 square foot building would be just tremendous. The project cost. This is not a cheap project. If there's any pushback that we've had out there, completely understand. It is tough. It is really tough as far as economics. But we were asking for a $10 million bond request, which would build a new fire station. Again, that would be within the jurisdiction of North Mason Regional Fire Authority. It wouldn't extend out beyond that. The bond request would be financed over 20 years, so there would be a 20-year payback period on the bond. And for the owner of a $250,000 house, it's about $6.63 per month. Chris and I were joking around, it's a coffee and muffin or cheeseburgers or whatever your fancy is, but that's what it would be per month. And when you hear about the $10 million figure, one of the pushbacks is, well, wait a minute, I can build a 5,000 square foot home for a fraction of that cost. And that's true. But one of the things, we've got some, which is unique to public projects, we've got some cost drivers that really amplify the costs that are associated with this. Number one, and people have different thoughts on this, is prevailing wages. When you're paying a contractor to build your house, you're probably paying a straight wage, whatever the contractor charges you. There's an agreement back and forth. I don't have that ability, and neither does the contractor, to sit there and have a negotiation over what these fees are going to be. We're going to pay what the state tells us to pay. That is a hefty cost. One of the things that frustrates me about prevailing wages, there's times where I will go out for bid on a public project, a building project, and I'll get a proposal from a contractor, and I look and I go, well, wow, that seems reasonable. And then I go, this is prevailing wage, and they go, nope, sorry, they've got to take it back. Didn't know it was a public project. how much are we adding to that? So it's not even driven by the contractors, but the state is mandating this is what you will pay if you're a public entity, and that has significant additions to the cost. Building and code requirements. Oh my goodness. Changing daily. You'll notice in our building that was built in 1971, we don't have a stormwater retention pond. Guess what we've got to put in for this one? A stormwater retention pond. In our building in 1971, we don't have electric vehicle charging stations in the parking lot. Guess what we got to put into our parking lot? Electric charging vehicle stations. The lights that are on the outside, we don't have to have a mitigation plan and mitigation for outward facing light so it doesn't bother the neighbors. It's a good thing, don't get me wrong. But all these regulations, environmental impact, and the list goes on and on, has significant cost for the project that has to be built in. There's no getting around it. And it talked about the environmental regulations, but it's not like building a house. If you look at that, the fire station was built in 1971. It was built for $100,000. And you know what most of the labor came from? It was volunteers on Sundays. You know how we know that? It's because not too many people know this. If you look on the siding on our building, the metal siding was actually put on backwards. Nobody knows that, but the volunteers that put that on the building didn't know which side, so it's on backwards on the building. It's worked fine over 50 years. It's just fine. You can't do that today. You actually get penalized. The state auditor will come out and say, listen, you can't have one single ounce of volunteer work into that project. It has to be all sent out. And so what we did 50 years ago doesn't equate to what we're doing today. And with that, our election is November 5th. I cannot say vote yes. I will sit there and just say, please vote. Vote your conscience is what we're looking for. But if I could, I asked Ross. Ross is with the Department of Emergency Management. And Randy has been instrumental on the backside of making this come together. Him and Frank Pinter and the other commissioners. We do have a signed memorandum of understanding, non-binding, that just says, hey, this is going to come together. We're going to have these different partners coming together. But maybe from their perspective, what do you see as the benefit from this project moving forward?
Well, I'm Ross McDowell. I'm the manager for emergency management, IT, and parks and trails. I have 3 hats that I wear. Like Bo was saying, 2007, I was in Lewis County dealing with the flooding over in Lewis County. I was working with the sheriff's office over there in emergency management. So I feel your pain. I understand how it is when your county gets divided. And I do understand that you have to have a main office, but you need to be out in the community. And that's what emergency management is really about, is being out in the community, out helping people get prepared and planning for these disasters that are going to come up. We do the CERT classes, we do a couple other educational programs that are out there, but our bread and butter for us is working with sheriff's offices and with the fire departments, or fire districts, I'm sorry. They are the doers. We're the guys in the back saying, what can we do to make it easier for you? What do you need? What kind of help do you need? Tell me, you guys keep doing what you're doing, I'll rustle up the other people. And that's what I'm actually pretty good at that. I can find a lot of stuff that seems to be floating around. I don't do a 5-finger discount or anything like that on it. I don't steal it. But if it's offered, I have no problem because I do paybacks. And that's what all the partnership is about, is paybacks. It might happen to you up here, but it might happen next time in Matlock. You pay it back. I did this with our flooding that we had in 2006 in the east end of our county, in Lewis County, that those people that we went out there and helped showed up in 2007 to be up there. I would like to do the same thing here. You know, just because you live in Shelton or you live in that portion of the county doesn't mean you can't help the people that are up here too. You know, I try to put that stuff together. That is my job. Is pretty much, I don't say it's sales at all, because it's really not sales, and it's not guilting people into doing what they need to do, but it's pointing things out to people of how you can be a better person. How you can be a better person all the way around and helping other people in your same community, because you're one big community, okay? There's no difference between Belfair and Matlock and Shelton. There's really not that much. If you all bleed the same, you all do everything the same, you are the same. And I enjoy working up here. This is fun. I usually do the drive up to here because then I can get out of my office and get away a little bit and get up here. And every time I come up here, it's just new people I get to meet, new issues that come up. This is a new area for me. I was scared to death the first time I went to Dahlia. I gotta say that because I was out in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And I could see absolutely nowhere from there. But it wasn't, what I was really amazed was the roads. The roads were in such great shape. I was like, dang, these are better than what's in the city. The city, you go down to by the courthouse and down there, and you know, I used to have a Jeep, and that was the reason I had the Jeep, because I went into the courthouse. You know, you needed it. Now it's, you know, it's kind of nice. But I am 100% behind Bo for putting this together. This will help not just your area right up here for the RFA, but it'll help Grapeview. We're a lot closer to Grapeview. It'll help Union. We're a little bit closer to Union that way, and it'll bring people together. And what better than have one-stop shopping? You know, you come to, you know, if you need to talk to one of the cops or one of the sheriffs, boom, they're right there. You'll have somebody there. Same thing on emergency management. Plus, we can set stuff up that it's already there. In other words, I don't have to have you come down to Shelton to see our dog and pony show or something that we're doing.
Sandbags.
Sandbagging for a change, yeah. We can teach everybody how to do it. We'll move stuff up here that we have a location to put it. That makes it easier. If there's a location local, I'd rather just have it up here locally so we can get it to you. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, can I ask you to find that slide that shows the overheads? I'm going to remind you of something.
Yep, absolutely.
First, I'm going to do a disclaimer so that I can be free to speak completely free. We have an understanding with each other. The commission, though, in order for any of these things to come in place, we'll take a vote of the commission, and none of that has occurred. It cannot occur because it doesn't exist yet. The things that I will talk about are things that we have talked about, we've had long discussions of, and I'll be talking more about what I'm hoping we're going to accomplish when it's over with. But I want to make clear, this is not the commission speaking specifically to that. So with that being said, I can say I completely support this. Okay, so, and I want to make that real clear. You know, it's funny, when I first became a commissioner, Patty Kleist, I would go into a meeting and Patty would say, some company would say, yeah, we're Mason County, this and this and this. And Patty would say, do you do anything up in North Mason? No. You're Mason County, how long have you been getting that grant? 10 years. Have you ever done anything? No. Then why do you call yourself Mason County? So I ended up taking that same line everywhere I went, and because she was accurate. There was a time here when we did have some services, but people forget that. Now, one of the first things I started doing is, how do I get services here? I ran into a problem. Just like Patty, when we finally established that we needed to get money here, before you can get money here, you have to have a pocket to put it in. If you don't have an organization to give money to, then you don't have anything to run with it. If you don't have a building to put it in, you don't have a place to put it. We used to rent the little concrete building where the Mason Transit is now. We used to rent that, and the county did, and our sheriff's department was in there. And the holding cell for the sheriff's department at that time was a chair, a stool about that big around with 2 holes on the side that they could chain them to. That's it.
Nice.
That's what it was. They did not even have a place where they could interview people in there. They eventually did put one in, but because of the way the building was, it didn't go to the ceiling. So anybody that was there, especially because at that time it started becoming the Chamber of Commerce, they could hear everything going on, so it was not usable. But we used to have some services. We used to, 2 days a week, you can go down and you can drop off your water samples, or you can get some paperwork to start your building permitters. Well, all that went away, especially when the building went away. There was a mold issue in it. It got closed down. Everything shifted. Now, with that being said, the whole hope for all this is to now have a pocket to put it in. If this goes through, the fire department has sat down with me and showed me how we can afford easily to bring something here to North Mason from the county. I asked him to pull that up because I want to remind him, if you look at that map and you see the white piece there that says DM Sheriff's Office, he also promises that building back
Yep.
behind there, and I want to make that, I want to remind everybody, because most likely that'll probably be more DEM in that area there. The sheriff's department, which is, as you see currently in this building here, would be able to move into a portion of that building, which currently has a workout room, which currently has a laundry facility. You've got to remember, things don't always go as planned. Sometimes they need the opportunity to clean up some of the things that they deal with. There's also a mechanics shop in there with the ability to work on some of our vehicles, including our sheriff's department vehicles, with the venting that goes right onto the exhaust. There's a lot of things that are already built into this building that would allow us more opportunities up here. Currently, we're talking about taking over our basically our ER&R, which is our own vehicles. We'd be able to do some of our work and house some of our vehicles right here in North Mason. Aside from that, there's facilities in there if we were to have a large major catastrophe other than just DEM. And I want to let you know, he's talking about the 2007 event. I don't know how many remember it, I do. I spent my time with shovels literally trying to get the dirt from getting into people's homes when they were coming down on the South Shore, the mudslides that were going down there, and we were digging them out. But then you had a few years before that when you had the Tahuya River Bridge that went out completely. Yeah. It ended up twice, but the first time Margie Benson from The Voice, that's where I met her. I was carrying elderly people back to one side so they can get to their medical appointments, and I was taking water back to the other side, and it's just citizens that took care of each other, but they were locked out. They were cut off. And then, as he mentioned, in 2007, that was a big event, so big that 2 years ago, we finally finished our last project of bringing it back through FEMA from the 2007 event.
Wow.
2 years ago, it took us that many years because there was just so much of it. So with this, for the DEM side, something I want to share with you. People tend to forget this all the time, but in the Belfair region in particular, if you have a very large catastrophe, we'll say an earthquake, you have 2 railroad trestles, and currently there is no bypass. There is no connection out of there. If those railroad trestles go down, how are you going to get equipment and stuff from Shelton? If you have the equipment here in Belfair, if you have the ability to go from here to there, all you got to do is get people. And then they have a great program, I know because I've taken it as well, where we as citizens are taught how to handle some of these situations. And if you have the facilities and you have the equipment here, it can be used here to get to our folks a lot quicker than we could without it. That's on the emergency management side. But again, I'm hoping, and we've talked as commission, and I want to point out there's another commissioner who's no longer commissioner right now that also worked with me on this, and that's Terry Drexler. Her husband is here in the thing, but she was a commissioner that also worked together with us to try and find ways to bring services up here to the North Mason area because it's been so long. So imagine being able to go at least maybe a couple times a week in the beginning to be able to go and bring your building permits and have a kiosk there where you can get some help. Or perhaps your different issues with water, or the health department there to deal with some of those issues when you want to have issues with your septic or what. How about having a commission meeting up there in that building once in a while for this north end? We currently will meet in the school district, but it'd be nice if we could meet right down there. Aside from any of that, having that sheriff's department in there, that's huge all by itself. Imagine the ease of access in comparison to what we have right now. Years ago, that was a substation. Then it became, shortly after I came in, we were able to turn it into a precinct. That's where they actually come to work there and leave from work there. You'd be able to do so much more of that here if we had this larger establishment. But I have a personal goal that I'm hoping to see happen. Currently, put yourself in a situation, I'm married, I have an older daughter, I have a younger daughter. When I was younger, you were taught if you were in trouble, if they're following you, if they're chasing you, where do you go? You go to the sheriff's department, you go to the police department. You can't do that here. If you do that here, especially in the middle of the night, you're going to end up down a hill with no way back out of there, trapped and nobody there, no sheriff there. If we have a situation like this, you end up with a push button that could alert both sides. If there happens to be a deputy there, great. But if not, if my wife pulls in there and she's in trouble, she hits that, You think anybody's going to stand up to a bunch of firefighters coming out? I'm telling you, it's a safety factor for my family and my community that I would love to be able to bring for us. You know, I got to tell a joke. I loved it because they told it to Casey one time. They said, you know what a sheriff deputy and a firefighter have in common? I said, no, they both want to be firefighters. I love well.
I have a few more for that. Being retired.
So again, you know, the opportunities to have if emergency management happens. There's bathrooms, there's showers, there's ability to do so much more there for our whole community. But it also would be nice to have those other offices, even an office where you can meet with your commissioners. Because currently you have to go down south. Well, not for me. I actually meet in a restaurant up here. I come meet everybody here. I'm known for that. But there's 2 other commissioners. And you want to talk to them, you got to go to Shelton. And I'll remind everybody that from right here, it's still almost 30 minutes. But from Dewato or any of these other places, you're talking 60 minutes out. How is that fair? Literally, we're all paying the same money. We're all carrying the same weight. How is that fair? And I don't think it is, but I think we're in a situation now, if this occurs, we could start to bring some of those services back. But more than that, I can bring safety in a way that my wife could find a place to go to if she had to, and so could your wife or even you. That's my 2 cents. Please, I don't know if you noticed, but during all those other times when they were asking for raises in the tax, you never saw me out there because I didn't believe in it. That's why I wasn't out there pushing for them. I believe in this. I'm pushing for this one. And this is the only time since I've been the commissioner I'm asking you to please consider it and please consider voting for this. That's my 2 cents.
Do you want to open up the floor to this?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Chris?
I'd like to ask a question. Obviously, finance is a big thing, how to finance this. One question I had though was that, you know, give or take on a $250,000 home per year, you're looking at about $80. Do you actually see by building this new facility any cost savings by not having to be in the old facilities and being able to lease those out that we might actually see as taxpayers?
Yes, from a couple of standpoints. One is overhead operating costs. I believe, you know, and we've done some, I would say, cocktail napkin math, but what the county is, or what we're currently paying in the current facility with the Highway 3 location, particularly the Sheriff's Office, that rate, I don't want to say goes away, but is significantly less than it was before. The operating costs, yes, the the county would end up having those, but our operating costs in the new fire station would go down significantly. I'm trying to think of other direct costs that I can envision.
Energy efficient.
Yeah.
Any older buildings you have, they're not very energy efficient. This would be nice that it would be energy efficient. You put into the LED lighting, that does make a difference. There also are programs that are out there that can help with those kind of things of putting in the LED lightings. You know, where you might get a discount out from PUD or somebody like that for.
And another thing that, I don't know if it's necessarily a cost, you could frame it as a cost savings, but the other thing I would put out I'm not well versed on that facility on Highway 3, but it is a commercial facility that's kind of been tailored a little bit to serving as a precinct. The fire station is truly an emergency building ready to go. It's generator powered for 24 hours. We've got propane and natural gas. We've got Cat 5 wiring all over the place. We've got radio communications that sync up with our tower up there, already built in and ready to go, which I don't believe, again, I might be naive, that they have that at that facility. Again, you have a major event, power goes out, hopefully it's not in the Highway 3 corridor, but we're up and running. Sheriff's Office is up and running. We're continuing to run this emergency management.
Sam Severe, I'm one of the GAC members, have been for about
GAC is a terrible name for our company, though. Go ahead.
But one of the things that seems to be missing all of these pitches is what's the impact on the citizens, the ones that are going to pay the taxes. When we've got every one of you guys coming in at a different time with one story, not with the story about how much is the taxpayer going to pay. And you'd really do a service by paying that in this. We just went through this unbelievable time down there in Shelton on our taxes for our buildings and that, for our homes. And they screwed us, okay? That's the best you can say about it. They jumped that thing up for, I think, what is it, 4 years? That thing's supposed to carry at that fixed cost. But we went up a considerable amount. There's got to be somebody in these outfits that are coming up with these new great ideas that talks about what can the taxpayer do? What can they handle? Because every year it jumps up again. Every year. You talk about this little basket of money now. There's 5 other outfits down there getting that same thing with that same phony pitch and asking the taxpayers whose salary hasn't gone up at all to carry another load. And so that's something that needs to happen in your stories. Okay. Right, Randy?
Well, and for me, I'm talking with myself again. I'll be paying my tax on it. I'm agreeing to pay it also. So it's no different for me. I'm not sure about the 4-year thing. I don't know what we're talking about there. We didn't pass anything at the county level.
That's a new assessments, when they do assessments.
Oh, every 4 years the county does, the assessors do a new assessment on your property. Yeah, they do that every four years. But as for, whether we pay, I never supported these other ones, but I would not ever deny anybody the ability to burden themselves. So that's why it went out for a vote. It's up to the people to decide what they think is important. For me, on this one, I decided for myself that this was important. I decided for my family that this is important. In my properties, I decided that it's worth it to me on this one to pay the extra. So just as a citizen, that was my personal decision. And that's the same decision I'm talking from. Like I said, I'm not talking on behalf of the commission, I'm talking on behalf of Randy.
I have a couple questions. Just from your description of having recently built a building, I get it. Just from your description, are you building it to LEED standards?
No.
Pretty close.
It will be close, but when you go to LEED standards, you pay how much for a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So we will be very near LEED standards, but we are not going to pay an exorbitant amount of money to be able to put a plaque in the hallway.
Okay, yeah, because yeah. And then you have to have 3 bicycle racks.
Yeah, you got it.
Right,
you
3
got it.
bicycle racks in a senior
Yep.
center, just saying.
Yep.
Then my other question would be, one of the issues we really have a problem with in North Mason, and I don't know if this is going to be able to address that at all, is we do not have any place to put people in an emergency if they need shelter. Would there be some sort of, like in your in your bigger meeting rooms or something like that, if we had something where people needed to be sheltered? Again, like the flood, we didn't really need that many people, but we do have that issue with the flood.
On an emergency basis, yes.
Okay.
All of our fire stations. So whether it be
A lot of times you would use them as first aid stations
Yeah.
for folks, and then we would try to go out in the communities and find locations. Right now, we have the senior center is one of the biggest ones, and they're kind of,
Well, that we could not, it costs too much to make that an official shelter.
See, that's
Yeah.
that's where
I
that's
know-
where
I know
I
exactly
walk
what you're
around that
talking
too.
Yeah.
There's a Red Cross shelter, and then there's a shelter. When it comes down to that time, and I'll be
If you
real
got a
blunt,
room big enough, you're going to throw
you got
people in.
a room big enough, you're going to put them in there. I'm sorry, that means the Red Cross people will not come in to help service them. That's okay. I'll find other volunteers.
Well, is Spiller still grandfathered in for being able to be an emergency shelter?
No.
No.
Oh, because it's school district.
Yeah, and not even back in the day, we ran round and around on that. You have to have seismic retrofitting. The list goes on and on to truly be considered.
The checklist is 4 pages long from Red Cross to be there.
Yeah, I know.
To be there. So I'm like, oh my. We
So
don't
I-
have places that meet these standards.
So actually, it would be good because your emergency.
We'll open our
the
own.
campus will only be a half a block from the hub. So
Yep.
you'd be right there.
And some of the portion of the emergency management over there, we would leave as a larger room that to use as an operations center, an emergency operations center, that we can whip up real quick. You can also use it for meetings. I use ours now for meetings and trainings because we have computers in there. So it's multi-purpose. It's not just used just for when we have an emergency. That's stupid to leave a room vacant and computers in it that people are looking for somewhere to go. Use our room. You know. Plus, it starts up the computers and gets them all updated. Which is what you need to do. You need to do that. Start them up every once in a while. Yeah.
Probably you guys. Cost on retrofit the other building to repurpose it.
Depending on
the existing building.
Let's say depending on what we do with it. We had Frank go in there. We had different numbers that we looked at, but a lot of it doesn't need to be done. It's already all there. So you're looking at maybe a couple $100,000. I know that may sound like a lot coming in, but it's actually not when you're talking about if that's with us doing all kinds of stuff. That's with us separating out a room for a mechanic and stuff like that. They are actually already have the installation stuff in the big room, the big building in the back. Some of those rooms that are now being used as bedrooms, we probably change a little bit more into office space. Probably close out at least a little bit of the shower space, but it'd be minimal. But it could be as little as 50 or 75,000, depending on how we choose to do it. And we had talked to them about working together on that at the same time with the fire department.
You had your hand up a million times.
Actually, I just have a comment because you guys are trying to figure out, how this might be beneficial for the community financially, and I'm not sure that it would be, but in Union, our fire department was volunteer, and then they went to overnight and staff people, and our insurance, the rate of the fire department went up, and so our insurance actually went down. And so I was just thinking that, with this consolidation of services, I would think that it would have a homeowner's insurance benefit.
Well, the benefits more.
Might be something you want to look into, is,
The benefits more on the service provision, so what's actually shooting out the door more than the building itself. But where the insurance issue, because one of the concerns I've had is where is this located? Is it on Highway 3? Is it down the North Shore? Is it, where does it move around? And there is an insurance implication that actually, it's not just because it happens to be next door. If we start moving that fire station around, homes need to be within 5 miles of a fire station. And if you start moving that around, it's perfectly placed. So folks as far away as Tiger Lake, or the Tri-Lakes, all the way down South Shore receive benefit from that fire station. You start moving it on Highway 3, you lose portions of South Shore. And and if you go from a protected area to an unprotected area without that 5 miles, your rates are at minimum are going to triple. Going from an insurance classification from 5 to 9.
Premium reduction, and that might be a benefit to offset the levy.
Yeah, okay.
I've spoken on behalf of what I think for the county and the county use, but there's some other stuff that when we're talking about why they should do it, because this is what we're actually talking about. We're not talking about the county. We're just going to benefit because this happens. But why they may want to do it and why it may make a difference to you is there's a lot going on that you may not know about. Up on the top of the hill, there is many different things that are looking to come in right now. Not even looking. Some of them already purchasing the property to do it. And that's going to be a draw on the services. There is 2 major apartment complexes that are looking, already going through the process of doing it. That's going to be draws on your service. You're going to need more to accomplish these things because this place is going to keep on growing. But these things are happening right now. You don't read it in the paper. It just, these things that we see in the background because of their permits and the things that they're putting through. There's a couple of companies that are extremely huge that are looking to go up on top of the hill. We have a...
Which hill?
Up where the bypass would be.
No, Highway 3 going into
Yeah.
the...
Well, it'd actually be on the side, it'd be above, like, we'll say, the Romance area north. Up on the ridge, up on the ridge on top. So now, but with that, though, you got to understand, there's going to be a lot of draw on the facilities and what they're doing. We also raised the height of our building, the ability to build, because the multifamily units didn't pencil. That's one reason why we don't have enough housing here. They don't pencil at a certain height. You have to have a larger height. With that means different equipment that comes in. Now they're adjusting to everything that comes on, but I'm only telling you that because although I was talking about what the county could benefit off it, there's a lot going on that's going to have an impact on them and why this may also be needed at this time in our history here in North Mason.
Well, the other thing from a planning standpoint, this is a 50-year building. And so just like our predecessors in 1971 tried to think about what's Belfair going to look like today, I don't think they hit the mark. But that's really difficult to do when you're trying to picture a 50-year building. But the design that we put into this is kind of thinking about, yeah, what exactly is going to be there for 50 years. You will look, yeah, there's some, I don't want to say extra space, but there's multi-purpose spaces that can be changed over the years. You know, as offices change to bedrooms or vice versa, meeting rooms are able to be cut up. You're actually putting off to either the back or the left side of the building and room for expansion, which just wasn't done with this particular building. But that way it carries us for the next 50 years. Knowing that that growth that he's talking about, in fact, it's here. I mean, I know it's coming.
They have to go through them to build it, just so you know, so they
Yeah.
know.
I know, they have to
So we
approve
get
it.
to do
Yeah.
that. That's, no.
Yeah, those lights, yeah, you have to live with that. This gentleman here had a question.
Yeah, is the fire station currently on a septic system, or is it actually hooked up to the sewer?
Current fire station is on the septic system, and it is anticipated the new fire station would remain on the septic system.
Okay, so there's a freeze right now on new septic systems in that area, so that's why I was asking about that.
That's not true. I don't believe that. Maybe Randy can speak to that. No.
We don't have, wait, wait, no, there used to be. Actually, I'm just remembering, you're correct, it's just the time has passed, but that's not happening there anymore. We had that lifted, we lifted it at the county level. I forgot about that for a minute. But no, there was a moratorium in that whole region that you could not put in a new septic system. He's correct. But no, about a year ago, that got changed, and now that can't be used again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you have something more to say?
Yeah,
Just wanted clarification on that, because, you know, I'm actually over in that area, so I'm very familiar with the septic system. So it's kind of important for that.
Yeah, that moratorium was lifted about a year ago. They didn't like it being called a moratorium. We that were here used to go down and fight with them and say it's a moratorium. If you're saying we can't build, can't use, it's a moratorium. That has been lifted. There was actually a change in the state law that allowed for us to do that. Plus, we've changed our plans with the sewer system. So now currently you can subdivide again, and you can put it in a septic again.
I learned something more than we learned.
Well, that was actually a great
That was
question.
an extra learning
Because
opportunity.
that did have a huge impact on that whole area.
Oh, sure, yeah. that's
Yeah.
important.
I wonder if, Randy, if that is because the sewer system is going to stretch out to the industrial area.
Well, we're working on,
Gets out.
yeah, we're working on trying to, but that's not the reason why. What had happened, it was a funny thing. Many years ago, the commission that were there decided that they wanted to freeze anybody from being able to do it, to make sure that you couldn't even develop your property unless you hooked up to the sewer. That has been relaxed. There was a law that allowed us to relax that. The grant agencies that gave us the money to do the sewer has now said that they're not going to force that upon us like they did. In order to get the grants, those past commission actually gave away 1,800 hookups in trade. Well, we only have 968 people in the whole entire urban growth area. So to give out 1,800, you gave out the future. Well, we've got some of that back. They're not going to enforce that.
Right, and how do we know what the costs are versus having a septic system?
He'll find that out
Extremely high.
Yeah, he'll find out when they go for the building. Currently, right now, if we were to have piping to go down there, it would, I couldn't give you a number there because it would be determined on how many equivalent residential units that the facility would use. So, you know, currently, right now, it's about $10,000 per every year.
I don't know if you could even move the sewer down there because of the position of the canal. And that's one of the primary reasons for why the sewer system didn't make sense going into that area, was because of the canal position.
Yeah, and one thing I will say is we're open to any and all options. So I shouldn't say this is absolutely what we're doing. We're open to anything. I had a meeting with Public Works, and there is a reason why, and I know that there's a lot bigger conversation on phases and where do we build out and all this other stuff. So where I was left with my conversation with Public Works is that sewer system stops right just past the Faith and the hub. And there's a reason for that, because that creek then that runs through there is nothing but fill. And so one of the options that we were looking at, because septic systems, sewer systems and septic systems aren't cheap, is there a way to reverse engineer, essentially back from our facility, essentially build our own line down the old Belfry Highway and then connect into the stub that's down there. And so Public Works said, you're more than welcome to do that. Just know that when you encounter that same fill that we did, your costs will be astronomically up and through the roof, to the point where the project isn't even feasible, getting back to that cost consideration that you're talking about. So we're looking at trying to cost it out, and if there's a way to bridge that divide, we certainly will. It's not penciling out right now. But that can change. Nothing's set in stone.
If it went down Roybal Road eventually, then it can connect from the backside. But that's, again, that system was built so big, as somebody had mentioned earlier, it's so big that he could drop it in Bainbridge Island and be good for 20 years. What it was built, it's just that huge. But the debt, it's that huge also. Remember, there was 968 people living in the UGA, 411 actual ERUs, and that's because they made the ERU so small that what would be one ERU in Bremerton is going to be 2 or 3 here for a business, and so they don't have room to utilize that. But it could eventually get down there, but it'd be through the Roybal Road connector, but somebody would have to give us money because there's no more capacity to take on more debt to get there.
And on that wonderful note, I would like to respect everybody's time. I'm sure if you have more questions, these gentlemen would be more than glad to answer them. There's chips and hot dogs still here at the back. If you want to, take one home with you, please.
I want to take it back to the fire
There's some nice
station.
crispy hot dogs. We will be, again, if you are interested in participating in our committee or submitting an issue to us, there's forms in the back. And we'll be having another one of these in January with the folks from North Mason School District. So put it on your calendar. It'll be the second Wednesday of January. Thank you guys very much. Thank you.